Hello neighbors, it's Brad here at etrailer, and today we're taking a look at installing the Curt 4-pole trailer wiring harness on a 2019 Honda Accord. If you're adding a hitch to any vehicle, it might be worth picking up 4-pole trailer wiring harness. That way, if you ever plan on pulling a trailer, if you have to move some stuff or some activities come your way where you need to hook up to it, this is going to keep you safe and legal by giving you running lights, turn signals, and brake lights to the taillights on the trailer. Now this one is fairly easy to get installed because it uses factory style plugs that tap into your taillights by simply just snapping into place. Now this is module protected as well as fuse protected, so if you have any faulty trailer wiring, it's not going to backfeed into the wiring and cause damage to your factory turn signals or lights or anything like that. So this is a really safe way to keep you safe while towing your trailer. And I'm going to walk you through all the steps to make sure you get it installed. So let's take a look at that. You can pop your trunk open, and to get your taillights out, you're going to see that there's going to be this black plastic, and that's hiding the hardware to get the taillight taken out. So we want to be careful here to not crack this plastic. So what I'll use is a plastic trim tool, and we're going to kind of just wedge this out. It just snaps into place here. So we'll just take our time. Let's see if we can't get kind of tucked back here. There we go. And then as you kind of find one spot loose, just kind of work your way down. And as you kind of have some build up over time, you'll see that that's going to cause that to kind of hang up here. But it's just these clips here. So if you kind of wedge in and get that separated, that's going to allow you to pull that out. And that's going to give us access to our screws that are holding the taillight in place. Now using an 8mm socket, we'll just get these removed. And something I'll point out is as you remove any hardware, you're going to want a nice organized spot to keep it. That way when you go to reinstall everything, you'll have all your hardware ready. And with taillights, there's going to be alignment tabs that they go into a slot, and you want to be careful not to damage those. So what I recommend is kind of just give these a wiggle as you're pulling back, and a lot of times you can get this to pop out. If you need to, a little soapy water solution, if you spray it in the cracks, sometimes it'll get in there and loosen that up. But just keep a little bit of pressure as you wiggle back and forth, and we should be able to get this tab to pop out. Now I'm going to give it a little persuasion here with the plastic trim tool to just kind of pry on this. You want to be careful though on these edges. You don't want to crack your taillight in the process. There we are. And so our alignment tabs actually go in from the side here. So if you kind of just pry this back and then pull straight out, make sure you don't damage those, but that's going to get your taillight out. And then from here we're just going to separate it from the wire harness. So push down on the tab. And then we have this plastic Christmas tree that's holding in the rest of the wiring. So if you want, you can go ahead and pry that off so our taillight's not dangling. And just using a trim panel tool or even a flathead screwdriver here, you should be able to wedge that and get this popped out. And then we'll set our taillight inside the vehicle, and we can repeat this same process on the other side. Now that we have those separated, we need to pull up our wiring harnesses to be able to plug into here. And a fish wire technique, just make sure that we can pass that up. So we have an airline tube. We use those here, nice and flexible. But honestly, if you have a string, you can tie a nut to it just to kind of weigh that down. And you can see the gap underneath. So if you can reach up and grab that pull wire, whatever you're using, this is going to make it a lot easier to get that wire harness up. So we'll grab our red, yellow, and brown. And it's a pretty tight spot to pull this through, so I recommend keeping this as flat as possible. So I'm just going to tape up one of them. Don't double them up because that can bunch up as you're pulling it. So I'll just get some electrical tape around this. And you may need to help feed it up a little bit in the small spots. But then we'll just go ahead and pull this up. And then we can separate it from our pull wire. And you'll see that it matches up with our plug, so just take the female end, plug that into the factory plug here, get that to snap in. And at this point you can grab your tail light, plug this back into the factory plug, and we can get this tail light put back in. And the nuances, we're going to hang tight on our power wire and our ground wire, but we'll take our green wire and our 4-pole, and I'm going to start routing this over. You can see I already have my fish wire pulled down for that. So it's going to go in the same just as we did on the driver's side. And as far as the 4-pole, I mentioned that this is normally going to live here. We have a dust cap that'll go on the safety chain loop. So really just trying to find a good spot to where this all has slack is going to be key. But it makes more sense to go ahead and get this all snapped together, and then we can iron out all that extra. So I'll go ahead, I'll get this routed, and then I'll show you how it looks. Now the main thing, and this kind of goes with the rest of the installation, is making sure that our wires aren't going to contact anything that could chafe it, pinch it, burn it, anything like that. So in order to stay away from the exhaust, and just kind of as we get over it, keeps it nice and clean, I routed it where the fascia meets the tabs here where they connect, and I used the hitch to zip tie. So I just ran that green wire over before pulling that up to get to our taillight pocket, and you can see here we have a gap that's away from our exhaust, and that's really what we're looking to do here. So with that zip tied, that's going to allow us to kind of determine how much slack we have for the rest of this. But before we do that, we're going to go ahead and get these attached, and that way we can get all that slack finished up and get this mounted up properly. So we'll start with our black wire. It's pre-stripped. This is where we're going to attach the bundle of black wire. Now something that's not included in the kit, but I do recommend picking up, is going to be a heat shrink butt connector. And that way the wiring does live outside and it's exposed to elements potentially, but shrinking that down means that it's going to create a nice seal around there, and that's going to protect the connection long term. Now if you don't have those or you're mid-install, you can use those butt connectors. I recommend taking some electrical tape and taping that up just to make sure that it's protected long term. So we'll take that spool, just strip off a little bit here. We'll get our butt connector crimped down, and then we'll attach that to our module power wire. And then we'll take a heat gun to that to shrink it around it. Now, if you can find a factory ground to mount this ring terminal to, by all means go ahead and do that. But with the self-tapping method, as long as you're going into chassis metal, that's going to be a good ground. So I'm going to put it here. And with your self-tapping screws, the trick is to get it snug enough to where that ring terminal is not spinning around. But any more than that, you run the risk of stripping out those threads that you made. So I'll go ahead and get this drilled through. So once that ring terminal is snug to where it's not going to rotate, that's going to be good. Now at this point we need to mount up our module. Now that we have everything kind of attached, we can get all this extra slack bundled up. And I think our best bet is to use the hitch to zip tie it up. You'll see there's a hole here. There's also a double-sided adhesive that you can use to attach to it. I like to do a combination of both. So taking that adhesive, putting it on the hitch, and then zip tying here as well as the wiring harness, just to kind of keep that nice and tidy to where it's not going to be jostling around as you drive. So I'll get this mounted up real quick, and also I'm going to zip tie all these extra wires up, and I'll show you how it looks. So the module, I used that double-sided adhesive as I mentioned and zip tied that up as well as the back side. The rest of the wires I just bundled up. Just make sure you have enough slack to be able to hook up to your trailer, obviously. Any excess you could always zip tie up a little bit later. So at this point, we got our power wire. We need to make this run up to the battery. So I'm going to find a nice clean path to keep this safe, and then we can get our 12-volt power. So I'll get this run, and then I'll show you how I did it. Now to get this routed up, it's not terribly hard to do. There's not a whole lot of great safe places to do this, but what I did is I routed this on the heat shield to kind of support that up and made my way over the rear cross member, and there's just going to be some holes here that you can zip tie that up. It's going to be out of the way of the sway bar and everything else. I then made my way over here by the fuel tank, and I'll go back and zip tie this up just so we don't have anything loose. But this underbody panel, if you pull off the plastic clips along the edge, that's a nice easy way to get a good clean run that's protected. So you can just drop that down and get it routed. And then from here, I pulled this down as well as part of our skid plate. And here I have my pull wire to get our wire pulled up. Now, the engine bay is pretty tight, but if you stay on the inside portion by the firewall where the steering shaft is, that's going to be a good route to where it's going to keep it pulled away from the exhaust. I then just tape that up and we can pull this up, getting our power wire pulled up to the engine bay. Now I pulled up the excess power wire and you can see kind of where I routed it behind the battery, and that gave me a nice clean path. So obviously we have quite a bit of extra, but before we cut that, what I like to do is take our fuse holder and get this kind of aligned where we want it. You'll see that the fuse is not in the fuse holder. Keep it that way until we get everything hooked up. That way we don't have power going through there. And we're going to attach this to the battery terminal. So you'll see that we have the nut here, tighten that down. We're going to loosen that up. And it's just a 10 millimeter to accomplish that. And you don't have to completely remove that. What we're going to do is take our ring terminal and get that attached to our fuse holder first. And I'm going to just strip back a little extra so we have some more to bite onto here. Give this a twist. And then we're going to crimp this down. And when you crimp stuff down, like our ring terminal that we have, just give it a quick tug. You want to make sure that long term that's not going to come loose. You won't have to chase any electrical gremlins. Now, so we don't have to remove this. What I'm going to do is just take our ring terminal and just give a small little cut. And that way we can slide it over that stud. Now if you want to, you can make sure that this clips back down. If you need to, you can make a small little cut on your battery protector here on the positive, but I was able to cut mine down. So at this point, I just find a nice clean path of how I want to route this, and then take my power wire. And you can leave yourself a little bit of slack. In fact, I do recommend just don't make it completely tight. That way, if you ever have to go back, you'll have a little bit of slack here. But I'm going to go ahead and cut my excess wire. And then route this as clean as you want it to be. And then we can attach this to our fuse holder with butt connector. Now I'll just get my heat gun and shrink this down. With that attached, we'll then take our fuse, put it in our fuse holder, and cap that down. Now at this point, we've officially installed our 4-pole wiring, but we do want to test to make sure that it works. So whether you do it now by hooking it up to your trailer, or at least do it before you hit the road, you want to make sure those light signals are properly transferring to the taillights on your trailer. We'll be checking ours using a 4-pole tester, and this keeps it specific to the vehicle. We have these available here at eTrailer, but as I mentioned before, you can just simply hook it up to your trailer if you have it handy and run through the light signal. So I'll hop in the vehicle and run through, make sure everything's working properly. Starting off, we'll turn on our running lights. Next, we'll do our left turn signal, our right turn signal, and then finally our brakes. With everything working properly, we officially have this installed. You're ready to go. You can take your dust cap and just get this looped on here to where this will loop around our safety chain loop. And if you want a nice clean look, you can take some wire loom and put this on the wires just to kind of tidy that up, make it look a little bit cleaner. But with this on our safety chain loop, you'll be ready to hook up to your trailer and you'll have all your proper working light functions. And that was a look and installation of the Curt 4-pole trailer wiring harness on a 2019 Honda Accord.